See what you got for us, Wonder? What you got? Breaking down the Avengers Doomsday trailer. He's going to explain Dr. Doom to us. Let's get it. Because he always knows some stuff that I don't know about the comics and these characters.
Is here, and I want to know right away what you thought about it in the comments down below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know all of your thoughts.
So I know some of y'all
the Avengers
felt it was lackluster. Some of you felt as though it was underwhelming. And I understand what you mean by that because come on, y'all remember how excited we used to be for a lot of these trailers, man. Especially with Marvel in particular. And it's not the same anymore. I think we're all hesitant. We're all cautiously optimistic right now. So I understand, and there's been no buildup. There's been no buildup as usual with several different movies. This is just boom. You know what I mean? Dr. Doom is here. So it's different. They built up Thanos for years, so.
The X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and Robert Downey Jr. has returned to the MCU as Dr. Doom. With a Latvian accent. Also, let me know what you thought about that.
Which I like it a lot.
Below. And we got a new poster for Avengers Doomsday that is actually quite revealing that, of course, we're going to break down in this trailer, as well as breaking down just everything that is happening with Avengers Doomsday, not just what we see in the trailer, but what we have heard about plot leaks and everything like that as well. We're going to break it down in this video. Let's not waste any time. Let's dive into it.
Get it going, man.
Avengers Doomsday, and then the next movie, Avengers Secret Wars, which is basically Avengers Doomsday Part 2, is the culmination and basically the combination of everything that Marvel Studios has done up until this point, and that does include previous older movies like the Fox X-Men movies. Between Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, you're going to see a lot of multiversal things happen, and that is because a lot of universes are going to be colliding into each other, which means Marvel is going to be showing us other universes. But Avengers Doomsday focuses specifically on three main universes. Our main Earth 616 universe, which is the main universe that we have followed throughout the entirety of the Infinity Saga, so from the very first Iron Man movie to Avengers Endgame, and for the most part, the same universe that has been the focus of the Multiverse Saga. The other two universes are going to be the Fox X-Men universe and the Fantastic Four's universe from Fantastic Four First Steps, which is the 828 universe, not to be confused with the 838 universe that we saw in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So the three main universes, the Avengers universe, the X-Men universe, and the Fantastic Four universe, they are all coming together in this film.
Yeah, I forgot about
for a very specific reason. Those three universes are about to collide into each other, and that is partially what Dr. Doom and Thor are speaking of in their monologues in the trailer. The trailer opens up with the sign for Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters at the X-Mansion. However, instead of the sign being by the front gate like it always is, it's actually on the floor, and as we can see here, it's very beaten up, and that is because the X-Men universe itself and the X-Men are actually quite beaten up at this point in time in their universe. And
got dirt all on the floor.
They show us Professor Charles Xavier.
You know, with Charles Xavier, that's a broken potted plant. He seems like the rich type of dude who's going to have ferns and other plants and see the statues and the library books. Seems like he would have a nice study.
You're looking out the window of the X-Mansion. He is looking out at literally another Earth being destroyed from another universe.
Probably.
What is happening in this scene is the X-Men are actually on that other Earth, or they were until it was about to be destroyed, and they are the ones who actually destroyed it. Because what is happening is an incursion. An incursion is where two universes collide into each other, and both will be destroyed if they collide. The only way to stop an incursion from happening is to destroy one of the universes. And in the comics, and what it appears to be in the MCU as well, is the Earths of the universes are the central focuses. They are the central cores. So when universes collide, it's actually two different Earths hitting each other, and that in turn destroys the entire universe. Both of them. So the only way to get out of it, to save your universe, is to destroy the other one. And that is exactly what the X-Men are doing, and that is what Charles Xavier is watching happen. And notice he actually looks horrified. And that is because they literally just destroyed an entire...
Well, he still be used to it. The leaks say that they've been doing it for a while. They basically it's become routine. Become savages at it. So maybe this is a throwback to the first one. Or maybe he's horrified every time he sees it. You know what I mean?
Our universe, literally trillions of people were just killed by the X-Men because they decided it's either us or them, and they're saving themselves. So it's not exactly an easy decision, and it is quite a horrifying moment. Something that Professor X is clearly struggling with, but is ultimately a decision they had to make, and that is what Dr. Doom is referring to. Dr. Doom says something's coming, something we may not be able to deter. Before this day is done, we will be faced with an unthinkable decision. And I do really like...
That's probably him taking out Steve's son, if that's the case, if the rumor's true.
His Latvian accent. And here we get our very first look on screen of Dr. Doom. Now, they're still kind of just teasing us with it, but from what we've got, I think it looks pretty dang good. And of course, Dr. Doom is the villain of this movie. Now, for a little bit of the movie, probably about the first half,
he'll be a friend
to act like he is actually a good guy. But of course, we know he's eventually going to turn bad. But this unthinkable decision that he is speaking about is basically what the X-Men have been dealing with. An unthinkable decision to destroy another universe to save their own. But Doom is going to take it a big step further. Doom wants to be the one who basically rules over the entire multiverse. But he doesn't think it should be a multiverse. He thinks it should just basically be one world under Doom. He should be the ruler of it. And this is what actually happens in the Secret Wars comics. Dr. Doom does indeed try to save the multiverse in the beginning until he realizes that it can't be saved. And then at that point, he decides to just create one world, which is a combination of a bunch of different universes into one, and he rules over it as God Emperor Doom. So his motives in this film are most likely pretty much the same as the comics. He believes that there should only be one universe and he should rule over it. So while you watch this trailer, realize that the Avengers are facing two threats. One, the threat of the entire multiverse being destroyed because incursions are happening, and two, Dr. Doom actually becoming the ruler over everything. We then go to New York, where we see that we have a new Avengers Tower. Now, this is the new Avengers Tower from the Thunderbolts post-credit scene. And remember, the Thunderbolts post-credit scene showed us that right now there are two different Avengers teams. There are the Thunderbolts, who are now the Avengers with a Z, and then there is Sam Wilson's Captain America Avengers team. And in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, they were talking about how there is conflict with both of these Avengers teams. And that is why Thor in this...
I feel the conflict in you, Father. There is no conflict.
Scene is telling them to put aside their petty squabbles, because nothing else is more important than what they're about to do. They are literally fighting to save not just their universe, but the entire multiverse. And he starts off this really epic monologue by stating, "I fought with many warriors in my time," and as he says that, we see the Fantastic Four. Again, the Thunderbolts post-credits scene shows us the Fantastic Four going from their universe, the 828 universe, into the main Earth 616 universe where the Avengers are. So the Fantastic Four show up, and then the new Avengers with a Z, Sam Wilson's Avengers, and Thor shows up. Now, we've actually heard that Thor's now daughter, Love, who was brought back to life by Eternity, has some powers, and...
I keep forgetting about her. I know Thor is back, but I keep forgetting. He was left with a daughter.
is kind of connected to Eternity, since Eternity is the one that brought her back. So one report that we've heard is that she actually senses what is happening and she tells Thor, and that is why Thor actually returns to Earth. Because the last time that we saw Thor in Thor Love and Thunder, he was very much off planet. So him and Love return to Earth. It sounds like he drops her off at New Asgard and then goes and meets with the Avengers and now the Fantastic Four, as we see him with them here in this scene. We then see all of the teams come together in the new Avengers with a Z tower. And it is pretty cool to see everybody together. We'll start from the right to the left. We have Thor, we have Sam Wilson,
Red Guardian,
America. Scott Lang's Ant-Man is back, which I'm super excited to
see. It makes
see.
me so angry that they made him into a complete effing moron. He's the equivalent of Captain America, and they, oh my god.
We have the Fantastic Fours, The Thing, Johnny Storm, Sue Storm, and of course Reed Richards. Then we have Ghost, and behind her is Bucky. Then we have Yelena Belova, Red Guardian, U.S. Agent John Walker, and all the way back to the left sitting on the steps, that is going to be Bob/Sentry. It's not really Sentry at this point because in order for Bob to be the Sentry, he risks having the Void come back from the Thunderbolts. And since he doesn't want the Void to return and turn everybody into shadows once again, he pretty much avoids any type of powers that he might use. Which is why he's basically sitting there in flip-flops and socks and looks like maybe a robe. He's not suited up with the rest because he doesn't really plan to fight. He hasn't been fighting with the New Avengers. But he does live in the New Avengers Tower. Now, if you notice in the back on the screen, you can actually see 3 different Earths, 3 different universes. And there are lines connecting them. And basically what that screen is telling us is that these 3 universes are heading for a collision course with each other. The universes that I mentioned, the X-Men universe, the Fantastic Four universe, and the Avengers universe. Now, from what we've heard about the plot for Avengers Doomsday, Reed Richards, Shuri of Wakanda, and Beast, Hank McCoy from the X-Men, eventually they come together and figure out a plan, and that plan is to put cannons on each of the Earths and basically use those cannons to push them away. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, in this scene right here, they are coming up with that plan. They haven't gone to the X-Men universe yet, which is what they have to do, because they have to put a cannon on that universe to push it away and talk to the superhero team that basically watches over that universe. Not that they know them yet. But here's something very interesting. We have actually heard, and it's not confirmed, but we've heard many reports that Doctor Doom is on the Fantastic Four ship, and he goes to the Earth 616 universe with the Fantastic Four. And he very well could be in this scene. We know Marvel Studios likes to edit their trailers. They remove things or put kind of fake footage in some trailers, like the Hulk running with the Avengers in Avengers Infinity War, which never happened, but we saw in a trailer. So it is very much a possibility that Doctor Doom could be in this scene. Because again, like I mentioned, from what we understand, Doom is going to kind of portray himself as a hero for a really good amount of the movie. About half the movie until he eventually attacks the Avengers and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, which is a scene that we're about to get into. Now, Thor, when he's speaking, he says that he has fought with many warriors in his time. And keep in mind, Thor is an Asgardian god. He's over 1,500 years old. So throughout his time, he's basically saying, look, I have fought over time with people who are far stronger.
And people are pointing out how he's got that hair now. He doesn't have long hair. So he's back at Infinity War hair. And Steve Rogers also has his Infinity War hair. So... and he does look scrawny now, so, every time I saw Steve, he always looked in really good shape. Like he was, like he kick you behind. Now he's just deflated. So, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if it's health reasons. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if it's, he's not Captain America anymore. She doesn't train anymore. So, that's the reason why he looks so scrawny now. So,
stronger than everyone in this room put together, and they all died. So here he's probably talking about Odin, he is probably talking about Heimdall, Loki, other gods basically. He can even be referring to Hela and Searcher, and probably talking about all of the Asgardians that died fighting Thanos. He says they all died. People all stronger than every one of these new heroes combined all died fighting a threat that did not scare Thor as much as Doctor Doom, and the threat of the entire multiverse being destroyed. Now, the lines get a little blurry here as we don't exactly know when Thor is giving this speech. It obviously shows us Thor fighting Doctor Doom. And Doom is so powerful that he blocks Thor coming down on him with Stormbreaker with just 2 fingers. That's how strong Doctor Doom is. So although it seems like...
yeah, so, while Doctor Doom is a normal person, you gotta remember, he has Tony Stark type technology on his side, and he also has magic like Doctor Strange. Imagine combining those 2 technologies together in the one person, because Tony's like the type of armor he's made over it, like he can fight gods, and then but Doctor Strange is able to fight gods with the magic he wields. But they're both normal men, just like him. You combine it together, boy.
like Thor might be giving the speech before they go and fight Doctor Doom. I wouldn't be surprised if it's after, because there's not really a big threat out there as far as a person is concerned besides Doctor Doom. So I believe he's referring to Doctor Doom here because the threat of the multiverse being destroyed just on its own and not by a singular person wouldn't really warrant this speech. But fighting a person who is stronger than everybody, that makes the most sense. And so I do believe Thor is talking about Doctor Doom here. There is a chance that he's talking about the X-Men, but I don't think he really knows about the X-Men because they haven't been to the other universe yet.
Yeah, some people think that this Doctor Doom is only a variant that is not the true Doctor Doom, that the true Doctor Doom will reveal himself in Secret War. So who knows? Who knows?
And if they have, that means
Could
they
be
have
talking
fought
about
Doctor
him.
Doom, because they fight Doctor Doom on the X-Men universe. In fact, the scene that we see where Thor is fighting Doom and Doom stops him with his fingers, that is at the X-Mansion, completely destroyed. But in order to understand why that happens, we have to break down some of these other scenes first. We see Shuri and a bunch of Wakandans, including M'Baku, who we believe is the king at this point in time, thanks to the Wakandan and the Fantastic Four teaser trailer that we got over half a year ago. He said he was King M'Baku, and it looks like Shuri is his Black Panther. So in this trailer, we see Shuri, M'Baku, and some of the Wakandans going to meet Namor, King of the Talakans, who we met in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Right. It looks like Namor actually clears a part in the ocean so they can actually go meet him. And with the Wakandans are some of the members of the Fantastic Four. We see Sue and we see the Thing. And this is because basically it's a divide and conquer mission right now. We know that Reed Richards isn't there because he is actually with the Avengers going to the X-Men universe, as we see him in that universe when these fights take place between the X-Men and the Avengers. So it looks like Sue and the Thing...
He's going through this with a fine-tooth comb. Is that his leg?
The Wakanda, and possibly Johnny and Franklin Richards as well. We do have this one scene where Johnny is hugging Franklin Richards now. We know that fantastic. So in this trailer, we see Shuri, M'Baku, and some of the Wakandans going to meet Namor, King of the Talakans, who we met in Black Panther Wakanda
Need to call him
Forever.
Namor.
It looks like Namor
to me.
clears a part in the ocean so they can actually go meet him. And with
Hard
Wakanda,
to see like Moses.
the members of the Fantastic Four. We see Sue and we see the Thing. And this is because basically it's a divide and conquer mission right now. We know that Reed Richards isn't there because he's actually with the events between the X-Men and the Avengers. So it looks like Sue and the Thing go to Wakanda. And possibly Johnny and Franklin Richards as well. We do have this one scene where Johnny is hugging Franklin Richards. If you take a look at the hair, it's blonde and it's shorter. Some people may think this is Sue Storm, but this is Franklin Richards, his nephew. So we don't know where they are. We could probably presume they're with Sue and the Thing. It's blonde. This go to Wakanda. And possibly Johnny and Franklin Richards as well. We do have this one scene where Johnny is hugging Franklin Richards. If you take a look at the hair, it's blonde and it's shorter. Some people may
Johnny.
think this is Sue Storm, but this is Franklin
the other
Richards,
person.
his nephew. So we don't know where they are. We could probably presume they're with Sue and the Thing in Wakanda, but they might have stayed behind as well. What's interesting about this scene with Johnny and Franklin is that it looks like there's a massive explosion happening behind them.
Possibly.
This could be a universe and world being destroyed. This might actually be at the end of the movie where the entire multiverse does get destroyed. Because those are some reports that we have heard, that they actually failed to stop Doom, much like in Infinity War they failed to stop Thanos. In this they failed to stop Doom. The entire multiverse does get destroyed, but everybody is brought back on Battleworld when Doctor Doom creates it. And then that brings us into Avengers Secret Wars. That's not confirmed, that's just a rumor at this point in time, but again, that is what happens in the comics. So it does look like there is, of course, some conflict between the Wakandans and the Talakans, and after Black Panther Wakanda Forever, yes, you can imagine there is still a lot of conflict. Namor attacked Wakanda, killed many people, including Shuri's mother, Queen Ramonda, but they kind of...
Wasn't that so stupid? They killed the Black Panther and his mother in the same movie. What the hell was wrong with them?
of put their beef aside at the end. They kind of let bygones be bygones, but it doesn't mean there's not still a lot of tension there, which obviously we can tell here as we get a look at Shuri's new Black Panther suit. It looks really cool. We can see that there's some new blue added to it that might be Talican vibranium. It might be a little blue, but since they're kind of in conflict with them right now, perhaps it's not. We'll have to wait and see. But the reason that they are there is because they basically need all of the help that they can get. They need the help of Namor and the Talicans. Because in Avengers Doomsday, there's going to be basically the premise that nothing else matters. Anything that's happened before, it doesn't really matter when you're faced with
the grand scale of things.
And that is why Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to wrap up a lot of the previous stories from the multiverse, because nothing else really matters when the entire multiverse is about to be destroyed. Everyone needs to come together because there's going to be nothing if they don't. So although we will see some tension between Wakanda and the Talicans and the new Avengers with a Z and Sam Wilson's Avengers and the X-Men, all of course will eventually come together to fight Doctor Doom. But not before fighting each other, which we see in some very epic scenes. And this all builds up to Thor fighting Doctor Doom.
Oh, yeah.
But we go to the X-Mansion and we see the Avengers versus the X-Men. We see Cyclops pop in with a very incredibly awesome and comic-accurate
cool
Cyclops costume. We see Channing Tatum's Gambit versus Shang-Chi in a really epic fight where Gambit is using a staff and using some cards, and of course Shang-Chi is using the 10 rings. The last time that we saw Gambit was in a post-credit scene that wasn't released in the actual film for Deadpool and Wolverine. Well, it kind of was. It was on one of the TVA monitors in the background, but unless you were really looking, you couldn't see it. But basically, it showed Gambit in the void from Deadpool and Wolverine, and then he saw a light, and he turned around, and basically it implied that somebody came and got him. So now he's in the X-Men universe, and Shang-Chi, the last time that we saw him was in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings a very long time ago, but he was training with Wong, which most likely explains why he's involved. Wong was in touch with Bruce Banner the Hulk and Captain Marvel, and basically the Avengers. So when everything starts to go down, Shang-Chi gets involved with the Avengers. It makes perfect sense, and I'm glad to see him there. Then we see Yelena actually dive under Mr. Fantastic's extended, stretched arm, holding back Sam Wilson's Captain America. We can actually see that he's holding Sam's
fine-tooth comb.
Yelena ducks under it, and we can actually see
fine-tooth combing
side is Herbie. And it looks like
fans find everything. See
it? He looks quite different than
I didn't see it till he said it.
We then see Mystique. Rebecca Romijn has returned as Mystique. She catches one of Yelena's batons and then turns into her, which is just super awesome to see her back. We then see Yelena versus Yelena, which is really Yelena versus Mystique. Looks like there's going to be some crazy cool fights with Mystique in Avengers Doomsday, most likely her turning into many different characters. And while they
gives me the chills. Her new look, I don't like how the contrast of the dots.
So it is meant to tease. For example, we see a little bit of Cyclops, but not a ton of Cyclops. We don't see Nightcrawler at all, and we do see Professor X and Magneto, but we don't see them in action. But we do see a really incredible move by Gambit. He jumps off a balcony inside of the X-Mansion. As he jumps up and flips, we can actually see above is stained glass with a giant X-Men logo on it. And as we see Gambit, he kind of flips over it, and it looks insanely cool as he smashes the ground with his staff. And as he hits the ground, we can see that fighting is indeed happening right now. We can see Sam Wilson behind him. We can see Shang-Chi in front of him. Reed Richards is to the side, wearing the white and the blue. And to the left in the background, it looks like we can see Mystique fighting Yelena. And of course, they made sure to show us, again, Cyclops' crazy optic blast with no visor on. Now, there is a very specific reason that the X-Men and the Avengers and the Fantastic Four are fighting, and it goes back to what I told you in the beginning. The X-Men have already faced many different incursions. They have already realized that in order to survive the incursion, the other universe has to die. In fact, we've heard many reports that the opening scene for Avengers Doomsday is going to be the X-Men possibly going to Spider-Man's universe, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man universe, to destroy it, which would be just insanely...
I still don't like that rumor that Hugh Jackman, that Wolverine, and Tobey's Spider-Man die in this movie. I do not like that. Unless they're going to bring him back, I don't like that. They don't have to kill him off to get rid of him. You know what I'm saying? I've never been cool with that, but whatever.
Cool to see if that ends up happening. But when you're the X-Men and your universe has gone through many incursions and you've destroyed other universes and fought other heroes and probably villains as well to save your own universe, When a team of superheroes from another universe arrives to yours, you would probably assume that they are there to destroy you, which is exactly what happens. The Avengers and the Fantastic Four arrive, and immediately they are greeted hostilely by the X-Men because the X-Men think that they are there to destroy them. But in reality, and of course they come to realize this, it is actually Doctor Doom who is there to destroy them. Which brings us to the scenes with Loki and Steve Rogers. We had heard a report months ago, and in fact we have heard this almost a year ago as well, that Loki is actually responsible for Steve Rogers being in the Fantastic Four's universe. Based on everything that we have seen from the Multiverse Saga and the end of Avengers Endgame, Steve Rogers went back in time at the end of Avengers Endgame and he stayed with Peggy. That was not supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to do that. As we learned from Loki Season 1 and Season 2, that would create a branch timeline that, at the time, the TVA would have to go and prune. So what we've heard is Loki actually sees this, and he goes and he tells Steve Rogers basically everything. He tells him about the TVA, he tells him that he's not supposed to be in that universe, but then he offers to move him to a different universe. A universe that doesn't have a Captain America. It doesn't have Steve Rogers or the Avengers. It just has the Fantastic Four. So what we heard is he moved Steve Rogers, his wife, Peggy, and his son, Jim. He moves them to the Fantastic Four's universe, the 828 universe. And before the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom head to the 616 universe, they actually discover Steve Rogers and his family, and that's how Steve Rogers returns and sees Thor. So when the Fantastic Four come to the Avengers universe, we actually believe it's the Fantastic Four with Doctor Doom and Steve Rogers as well. And Doctor Doom actually
that poster's real cool, by the way.
Steve reportedly caused the death of his family, and that's actually
if you look up Avengers Doomsday on Google, that's one of the images that pop up. It's a new poster for it. It's cool.
Backed up by the poster that we have that was released by Marvel Studios today. But in this scene, we actually have heard that Loki gives Steve Rogers a type of TVA card, which is a means to contact Loki if he ever needs to. And that is the card that we see here. However, there is something that seems to be a little different than what we heard before. Loki does appear to be at Steve Rogers' house in this scene, and he appears to be wearing his TVA uniform. Looks like he has the shirt and tie and the jacket over it, and we've heard that the Loki that visits Steve Rogers is not the final Loki that we see at the end of Season 2, but it's a Loki before then. So somewhere between Season 1 and the end of Season 2. But that might not be entirely accurate, because if you notice, the card that Loki gives Steve Rogers, on the back of it, it actually has a tree on it. And we know that at the end of Loki Season 2, Loki
it could be him.
Bringing all of the timelines together.
He might be able to leave
Yggdrasil,
in some form or fashion.
Tree from Norse mythology, essentially him becoming the god of stories. So it doesn't seem like it would have that tree on that card unless the events of the ending of Loki Season 2 already happened. So which Loki this is, or I should say at what point in time this Loki comes from, is unknown. But honestly, it's kind of irrelevant, because the most important part here is that Loki visits Steve Rogers, he moves him to a different universe, the Fantastic Four's universe, and he gives him this card as a means to contact him if he ever needs to, which ultimately he does. And from what we know, he does it with Thor. And that is why we see Steve Rogers and Thor in this trailer, but they are not with the Avengers and the Fantastic Four when they go to the X-Men universe. At the end of this trailer, we see Thor say it's not possible. He has Mjolnir and he has Stormbreaker, and he sees Steve Rogers. He doesn't believe his eyes, that's why he says it's not possible. And what's really, really cool here is, as a test, Thor actually kind of extends his arm with Mjolnir in it to see if Steve Rogers can summon it, because of course he did in Avengers Endgame. And this isn't the same Mjolnir that Steve Rogers had when he went back in time at the end of Avengers Endgame. This is the same Mjolnir that came back in Thor Love and Thunder, because if you take a close look at it, you can see that it is still cracked. But of course Steve Rogers manages to summon it, which proves to Thor.
Let's see.
And this isn't the same
Where's it cracked at?
When they go to the
maybe it's a blurry picture. I have to look at it again.
We see Thor say it's not.
So I thought he was using the cracked one.
Stormbreaker, and he sees Steve Rogers. Of course, Steve Rogers manages to summon it, which proves to Thor that he is indeed the Steve Rogers that he was.
Yeah, it looks like it might
be. Now, from what we've heard at this point in time, Steve tells Thor that he.
It looked like it was in way more pieces before, though. Like when Jane had it. You know what I mean?
ran into Loki, or at least a variant of Loki. And Thor, in sort of disbelief at what his brother has become, and also disbelief that his brother might be alive, because of course the actual Loki that is his actual brother did die, this is a variant, but Steve does have the card that can contact Loki, so they both actually go visit Loki at the TVA. Now from here we've heard a lot of different reports as to what happens, but one thing that remains consistent is that when Steve and Thor get to the TVA, it's destroyed. We've heard many different things at this point. Nothing, of course, is confirmed, but we've heard that Loki is injured. Some people die at the TVA, like Mobius or OB. We've heard Loki might die himself, but one thing is for sure.
Why kill him again?
TVA, and they realize that Doctor Doom is actually the villain, because remember what I said, Doctor Doom should be with the Avengers.
The rumor is Doctor Doom kills Loki
throughout most of the beginning of this film. In fact, based on the Fantastic Four's post-credit scene where Doctor Doom shows up and he's with Franklin, it looks like Doctor Doom goes to the Fantastic Four to speak to Reed to tell him that the multiverse is about to be destroyed and they have to stop it, which is
just looked at my clock. I can't believe it's this late in the day.
But of course,
what the hell's going on?
Make it seem like he's the hero only to turn on everybody, which brings us to
swore I just woke up
with Thor versus Doctor Doom. The statues kind of threw me at first until I
4
realized
o'clock
what
right now.
exactly is happening here. This is at the X-Mansion. We already know that a big scene at the X-Mansion is going to go down, and some of us have even seen a version of it leaked online. But we know that eventually the X-Men and the Avengers and everybody realize that Doctor Doom is indeed the villain, and while they realize that, Doctor Doom actually summons Sentinels via his magic to attack the X-Men and the Avengers and the Fantastic Four. The first scene that we ever got for Doomsday with the X-Men, Cyclops taking off his visor and shooting his optic blast through the air, we see the Sentinels walking in the background. And that's because Doctor Doom raises them up to fight them. And the reason we know that is because in this scene where Thor lands in front of the statue, we can actually see destroyed Sentinels in the background. If you take a look to the right, you can very clearly see a Sentinel leg, and to the right of that is the rest of its body. So the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and the Avengers start to fight Doctor Doom at the X-Mansion. It looks like just about everything does get destroyed. A few statues remain, which we saw in some leaked set photos, which is another reason why we know that this is actually at the X-Mansion. But it looks like everything gets destroyed. The Avengers and the X-Men, the Fantastic Four probably have a hard time fighting Doom, and the reason that the fight starts is presumably because Thor and Steve Rogers return and say Doom is responsible for everything. So even with everybody, it looks like Doom kind of wipes the floor with them, because as Thor charges full on with Stormbreaker at Doctor Doom, he stops him with just 2 fingers.
Yeah, some people think that this is God Emperor Doom, and it definitely, well, could be. People are hoping to get Rune King Thor, so yeah, we're just gonna have to see what happens. What's he gonna do to be able to deal with him? It'd be interesting to see what happens.
Showing us just how big of a threat Doctor Doom really is. And that is because Doctor Doom is one of the strongest characters to ever come from Marvel. Quite possibly the best villain from Marvel, depending who you ask.
You know what's interesting, too, about Doctor Doom? If you're a normie, most people have heard the name Doctor Doom. Now, this was before they brought forth Thanos in the movies, because beforehand, not too many, most normies never heard of Thanos, okay? Thanos was made popular through the movies, but people heard of Doctor Doom a while ago, and he was in cartoons and other stuff. People heard of Doctor Doom before, you know? I heard of Doctor Doom growing up. I didn't hear about Thanos until the snap, I think, and that was one of my friends told me about that when that happened in the comic books. But I didn't know who Thanos was. And I didn't get introduced to him again until Marvel Superheroes Fighting Game came out, because he was the final boss in that. The final boss! You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, to bring Doctor Doom in, you know, I think a lot of people my age that are normies and older that are normies, they know that name. So, the turnout would be interesting for this.
Victor Von Doom is one of the smartest people in Marvel history, and he has a long-standing rivalry with Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. As a kid growing up, his mother was actually a sorceress. Unfortunately, she was tricked by the demon Mephisto and ultimately died. His father would ultimately die as well. Dr. Doom was born in the fictional town of Hasenstadt in Latveria. Doom, later on, when he ruled over Latveria, would rename Hasenstadt Doomstadt. A young Dr. Doom would end up discovering a lot of his mother's mystical artifacts, which led him to becoming a very incredible sorcerer. He would eventually go to America State University in New York, where there he was roommates with Reed Richards. As I mentioned, his mother was tricked by Mephisto, and she was actually taken to the Hell Dimension. So Dr. Doom was working on creating a device that let him communicate with his mother. Sadly, the experiment went wrong, it exploded, and it scarred his face. He was then expelled from the university as well. This led Dr. Doom to Tibet, where he met a bunch of monks. And there they would actually forge his suit of armor and his iron mask. Doom returned to Latveria and overthrew the current leadership, the ones that were responsible for the death of his parents. And from there, Doom set out to conquer. Being one of the smartest people ever in Marvel's history, he started to develop robotics and weaponry and time travel.
Almost like bags under his eyes. I hope it, once they zoom out and you get to see his face, I hope it looks better than that. But I think this still might be all right. I gotta go see the poster of him to see kind of if it's accurate to what they showed us before.
It also became an incredibly skilled sorcerer
like
back
that,
in the comics.
with the film strip behind him.
Become the Sorcerer Supreme. So his sorcery, combined with his incredible intellect and his incredible technology, makes him one of the most dangerous people ever. And from there, he basically set out to conquer the world, rescue his mother's soul from the Hell Dimension, and of course, always try to prove that he is better than Reed Richards. Now, in the MCU, it sounds like his origin might be a little bit different, at least as far as his skills are concerned. You see, with the trailer, Marvel actually released this new poster, and I think it's actually quite telling, because if you take a look at the top there, there's a woman and a child, and under them is a planet. Now, we have actually heard that in the MCU, in Avengers Doomsday, we'll learn that Doom actually had a wife and a son. However, sadly, Dr. Doom learned about the incursions
They were his
in the multiverse
world.
and knew that an incursion was heading towards his Earth. So in order to try and stop it and save him and his family, and of course their entire universe, he tried to build a machine. Unfortunately, something goes wrong, it explodes, it severely scars him, not just his face but his entire body, but unfortunately kills his family, his wife and his son. Now, based on reports that we have heard, Steve Rogers is actually the reason that this happened. Steve Rogers, being in the Fantastic Four universe, where Dr. Doom is also from, caused an incursion to happen. He was bringing the 616 universe to the 828 universe because he was not supposed to be there. So Dr. Doom, throughout the entirety of Avengers Doomsday, actually blames Steve Rogers for the death of his family and the incursion that is happening right now with his universe. And in this poster, you can see that this world actually does have a little bit of cracks on it. You can also see that there do seemingly appear to be angels on this as well, which would imply that his wife and his son did indeed die. And on the bottom left, it looks like there is some type of a wizard. And we've actually heard that Doctor Strange and some witches and wizards
I don't know if that's
Dr.
strange
Doom.
right there.
And this is because Dr. Doom believes that
He's got his
he is
mask
the
in his
savior
hand.
of
I didn't
multiverse.
realize
And
that.
most likely comes down to the fact that a lot of the heroes have actually caused incursions. Steve Rogers, Doctor Strange, of course, has caused some. We've already seen that in Multiverse of Madness. Spider-Man Brand New Day caused some as well. There's been probably a lot. So from his perspective, the heroes are the ones that are actually destroying the multiverse, and the only way to save it is if Doom can actually rule over it. Of course, it's a little bit about that, but of course, it's also about revenge. Dr. Doom getting revenge for his family against Steve Rogers and against the rest of the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and the X-Men. And that is what we are getting in Avengers Doomsday. Let me know what you thought about the trailer in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about Dr. Doom and Robert Downey Jr.'s Latvian accent, which I actually thought was pretty good.
I really
leave
liked
all your
it
thoughts in
a
the
lot.
comments down below. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Avengers Doomsday.
And he sounds ominous. I liked it. Get over and subscribe to Cosmic Wonder. Tell him Tyrone Magnus sent you. 10 million subscribers. Woo!